Good afternoon, students of IRUD Summer Course 2029. My name is Kanya, and today I will be the moderator for the second sessions. And to all of the audience, since today we are going to have a very interactive and interesting session, so we really encourage you guys to be more active throughout the session. But before I start, I would like to remind you to please turn on the camera since the attendance will be monitored to your screen appearance. And please don't forget to fill the attendance form for the sessions. And also for the sessions, we have 3 PIC. They are me, Shamira, and Beatrix Francia. So if there is any problem that you've encountered during the sessions, you may communicate it to the PIC1. Please look for them in the participant list with the term PIC1 in front of their name, or maybe you can text them since we already give you our phone number in the study guidebook and also in the broadcast message that we sent earlier in the group WhatsApp. So let's get started. Now we are going to have sessions with the title Nusantara Culinary Traditional Fried Chicken and Spicy Sauce, and the sessions will be delivered by Mr. Jovan Connery. In the sessions, Jovan will demonstrate us how to make one of Indonesia's cultural treasures in the culinary field, which is ayam ungkep bumbu kuning and spicy sauce, since we all know that Indonesian food is always famous for its spicy delicacy. The demonstrations will provide a comprehensive tutorial, including the particular tricks in creating a delicious food. And hopefully, after the sessions, the participants can also try to make their own version of ayam ungkep bumbu kuning, an Indonesian traditional hot sauce. So without any further ado, let's welcome our today's speaker. Jovan, are you there?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you clearly.
Yes.
How are you today, Jovan?
I'm good. Thanks for asking. How are you all today? Thank you for inviting me to this great session, summer course, IRUD.
Okay,
I'm truly honored to be able to share with all of you.
Well, are you ready to teach us how to make the perfect fried chicken, the proper fried chicken and spicy sauce today?
Absolutely, absolutely.
All right, but before that, let me introduce you to all of the audience first. For the operator, Marcel, you may share the speaker CV. All right, so Mr. Jovan Connery, he is a very honest and hardworking person, and he loves to help others in any way that he can. And for the education background, in his junior high and senior high, he went to Tritunggal immersion program, and currently he is a student majoring in business management in Universitas Prasetya Mulia. And for his experience, he is also an intern in the PT Growell Indometal, and for his business background, he is also the owner of bejibun.it since 2016 until 2017, and also the owner of baffle.it from 2019 until 2020. And he also have an award, which is the winner of Creative Fest Day food category. And Jovan Connery is actually also one of the owner of Lombok Ijo restaurant, which is a very well-known restaurant in Semarang, Indonesia, which has specialty in its traditional fried chicken. Jovan also has a strong background as a businessman, so that's why Jovan will provide some information regarding traditional food business, especially in Semarang, based on his experiences. And also with the sessions, we encourage the students to promote traditional food through business industry. And we will also provide you guys with the recipes, so you guys can follow Jovan making today's special dish. Marcel, you may share the recipe. Okay, next slide. So, okay, for the things to prepare, for the chicken seasoning. We need to prepare 6 until 9 pieces of chicken, 2 until 3 lime, 5 teaspoons of salt. And for the dry ingredients, we need to prepare 2 lemongrass stems, 2 bay leaves, 5 lime leaves. And for the blended ingredients, we need to prepare 1 thumb size of turmeric, 1 thumb size ginger, 3 thumb sized or 10 centimeter of galangal, 6 shallots, 6 cloves of garlic, 5 candle nuts, 2 teaspoons of coriander seeds, 2 teaspoons of chicken stock powder or MSG, 100 milliliter coconut cream, 3 teaspoons of salt, 2 teaspoons of sugar, 1 teaspoon of MSG, and 5 until 7 tablespoons of oil to blend the ingredients easier. Next slide, please, Marta. Yes. For the crunchy bits recipe, we need to prepare 200 milliliter leftover marinade, 1 teaspoon of MSG, 3 tablespoons of tapioca flour, 1 tablespoon of rice flour, 1 teaspoon of baking soda, and then salt to taste, and also water to dilute. Thank you, Marcel, for sharing the recipe. Now, it's time to invite Jovan to give us a demonstration on how to make ayam ungkep bumbu kuning and the traditional spicy sauce. Jovan, the time and screen is now yours.
Thank you so much for the introduction. As you have heard from the PIC of this event, if you have any questions to ask of me about this recipe, about business in Indonesia, especially food business in Semarang, I'm very happy to answer all of your questions. So, to preface this, I would just like to explain that today we're going to be making ayam bumbu kuning ungkep goreng, which translates to yellow fried chicken. So, ungkep in itself is a method of cooking the chicken, which you put the chicken in a pan and you marinate it in the sauce that we have made, and you let it simmer. You let it simmer so that all the juices and the flavors absorb into the chicken, and when the water has reduced, then we take it out. So the first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna take the chicken. Here I have about 5 pieces of chicken. And first we're gonna season this. We're gonna season this with a little bit of salt, just a little bit of salt. Sprinkle it around there. About 2 to 3 teaspoons of salt. And then what we're gonna have next is we're gonna have to cut a lime. This is a medium-sized lime. I usually use 2 small-sized limes, but in this case I have a medium one, so I only use 1. We're just gonna cut it up. And then next we're gonna juice the lime into the chicken. Now it's important to note that this lime will not affect the taste of the chicken. It's not gonna make it sour or it's not gonna make it fresh. All it's gonna do is it's gonna help reduce
Recording in progress.
Some of that chickeny smell, so that we don't have any of that smell left. Okay. Once we squeeze all of the lime, the next step is to rub it in. We have to mix it well, the salt and the lime with the chicken. So just get in there and mix that all up. Massage the chicken. Make sure that every little crevice gets every bit of grain of salt in there. Now, once we're done with seasoning the chicken, the next step is to make the wet ingredients, the wet sauce and the marinade. It's a soup base for the sauce. So the few ingredients that you need for this are as follows. Here, if you can see, we have some turmeric, we have some candle nuts, some garlic, shallots, and also galangal. Now, the amount of each ingredient has been given to you by the PIC earlier. So here I'm just going to give you a rough estimate. What we're going to do now is we are going to mix these ingredients and blend them together. So in this case, I'm going to use a blender. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put all the ingredients there. Galangal, turmeric, some ginger, a few candle nuts, shallots, and garlic. The next step is we're going to water down these ingredients so that it will mix easier. So what we're going to do is we're going to use some coconut milk, which I prepared earlier. The amount that we're going to use here is about approximately 150 milliliters of coconut milk. But you can adjust this to your liking because the more coconut milk you put in, the more savory it's going to taste. All right. So after we put the coconut milk in, what we're going to do is we're going to add some more salt just to give it that extra flavor. About 3 teaspoons of salt. As well as some chicken powder. Here I have the common chicken powder found in Indonesia, which come in sachets like this. In this case, I'm going to use the whole packet because it's about 2 to 3 teaspoons. I'm going to just put all of it. Besides that, we're going to put a little bit of oil inside so that it's just going to make the blending process a little bit easier. After all the ingredients have been put inside, we're just going to mix it all up. What we're looking for in this case is a smooth consistency for the ingredients itself. If you can see here, these are the ingredients. I'm just gonna mix it up a little bit more so it'll become smoother. After we blended everything together, it's gonna look a little bit like this. So every little bit of ingredient there is already mashed up, blended, and it's sliced. So it'll be able to absorb all of that flavor. Now we're done with the soup base for this dish, and we're gonna move on to frying. So for this dish, you wanna take a deep pan, about this deep. You don't want a shallow pan because what we're gonna do is we're gonna submerge the chicken in water and the soup base so that it simmers for an hour or so that it will let the chicken absorb all those flavors. The first thing we're gonna do, we're gonna need some lemongrass, about 2 stems of lemongrass like this, as well as some bay leaves, and a generous portion of lime leaf, which I have here. Now, some recipes that you find online, they will have specific measurements for every ingredient that you have to use here. But in my opinion, with Indonesian cooking, with all the flavors and so, you can just adjust it to your liking. And in this case, I'm a person who likes salty food and savory food. So I chose not to put a lot of sugar in here, but you can put some sugar in there if you like more of a sweet taste. So here for the bay leaves, I wrote in the recipe that you need about 8, but I'm just gonna use a handful because I like that fresh lime leaf taste, and the bay leaves, I use a few here, about 4.5. Forgive me.
Okay, for the participants, if you have any questions for Jovan about the ayam ungkep bumbu kuning, or maybe about his background as a businessman in the culinary industry, you may drop your questions below in the chat box, or if you prefer to deliver your question personally, you may raise your hand and then I will give you the permission to open your microphone.
Okay, so now that we have prepared all the ingredients that we need, we're just gonna put some oil inside the pan, just a bit of oil. Because the first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna sear the bay leaf, lime leaf, and lemongrass. I put about this much oil in. And now we're gonna turn the stove on into a medium-high heat. The reason for this medium-high heat is because we want to sear, and we're not cooking them through. We're just letting all of that aroma show out of the dish. So we're just gonna wait until this oil heats up. Now that the oil has roughly heated up, I'm gonna put the bay leaf in and the lime leaves in, and we're just gonna break them apart a little bit, just to let more of that fresh lime leaf aroma out, as well as the lemongrass. Remember to crush the lemongrass at its core beforehand so that it releases more of that lemongrass flavor, as well as the bay leaves. We're just gonna break them up a little bit. Now we want to mix it up. Here for about a minute or two, or just until you can add shallots or garlic. Even with these ingredients alone, I can already smell that this smells amazing. So I just can't wait for the finished product. Now we're just gonna let that sit for a bit. And the next step is for us to put in the soup base that we made earlier. Now what we're doing here is we're cooking the ingredients that were put inside the wet sauce, inside the soup base, so that most of that flavor is gonna come out. We're gonna have the best version of it. So you don't want raw ingredients in your Indonesian food. You want cooked and nice aromatic flavors and herbs. So once that's seared through, we're gonna put this in. And don't be afraid if it pops at you at first. It's just because of the water content that is inside. After a little bit, it'll calm down a bit, just like this. And we're gonna mix it up with the leaves and the lemongrass we had before. And during this process, I advise you to keep mixing this because during this process, it's very easy for the soup base to get burnt at the bottom. So we're just mixing it up constantly to prevent it from getting burnt. Now we're gonna cook this through just like the dry ingredients earlier. So we're just gonna let it sit for a bit, mix it up, wait for the ingredients to get a little bit of a darker color. That darker color indicates that the ingredients are more cooked through and more of that aroma is coming out. Now during the stage, you'll be amazed how good this smells. If you have the chance to make it at home, I truly recommend this dish because the aromas and the flavors are amazing. The flavors and aroma that comes out from this, you can smell this from about half a kilometer away. Okay, so once that's a bit cooked through, what we're gonna do is we're gonna add the chicken that we had earlier. The chicken that we seasoned with the lime and the salt. We're just gonna put that in, cook it up a little bit. Let that chicken sit. Now what we're gonna do is we're gonna mix the chicken up with the soup base so that it covers every little side of the chicken, so that it gets through the outside of the chicken and the inside. Now listening to me just explaining to you the ingredients, the different ingredients, lots of herbs, lots of sauces. It could be intimidating for some people, especially that to people that don't have as easy access to this. But I assure you, this dish is quite easy, and the hardest part about this dish is just rounding up the ingredients. So once that's done, it's a very easy process, and anybody can do it. Once we've mixed the chicken in with the soup base, you gotta make sure that every side is covered. Now what we're gonna do is we're gonna add some water. The amount of water depends on the size of the dish, the pan, and the amount of chicken and soup base. But a good rule of thumb for me is just we're just gonna put some water in up until it basically covers the chicken that's inside. So as you can see here, I put about this much water in. After we put the water in, we're just gonna mix it up to let that soup base mix in well with the water. And we're just gonna let it sit. We're gonna let this sit until it boils. And basically, at this point on, you're done. All you have to do is find a lid. You want to find a lid with a little hole at the top, and you're gonna cover it. Now, we're not just gonna let it simmer in open air like this, because if we let it simmer in open air like this, it's gonna decrease the water content far too fast, far too quickly, and it's not gonna absorb that much of the yellow ingredients that's inside. So what you want to do is you want to cover this and leave it for about 30 minutes to an hour, up until about 20 to 30% of the water content is left. And you want to make sure to mix it up, scrape the bottom of the pan every 10 minutes, so that just to make sure that the ingredients don't burn. So far, does anybody have any questions?
Okay, Jovan, so we have a few questions here in the chat box. The first one is from Putri. She's from Surabaya. She want to ask you about what kind of chicken you use to cook that ayam ungkep.
Okay, so in this particular situation, I'm using just normal chicken that you find in the supermarket. But here in Indonesia, we prefer to use free-range chicken or ayam pejantan, as we call it, or ayam kampung. It's a more lean piece of chicken, but it has more of a savory flavor and it brings out more of that chicken taste. And so Indonesian people, that's more of the delicious kind of chicken here. But in this case, I feel like you can use any type of chicken. You can even use any protein you want. But for the chicken, I would say that you can use any type of chicken. But I would recommend using free-range chicken or ayam pejantan for this case, just to give it more of that authentic chicken taste, and so that it's easier for the chicken to absorb all of that flavor that we had earlier.
Okay, Jovan, we also have another one here from Yuta Triwaskita. He want to ask you, can we use another type of milk beside coconut milk?
Yeah, so I understand that not everybody likes coconut milk, and coconut milk in itself, it's a very thick, very savory kind of milk. So I think people would like to replace coconut milk with maybe cooking cream, or maybe you could just use regular milk just to give it a little bit of extra creaminess and a little bit of extra savoriness. Because I understand that not everybody likes coconut milk. And I would think that cooking cream and just normal cow milk would make a good alternative for those of you that don't want to use coconut milk. So here I'm just gonna stir it up a little bit more. It's starting to boil, so we're just gonna stir it up a bit. And we're just gonna let it sit again. Are there any more questions?
Yes, we have one from Areta. She's actually one of our community, but I think she's pretty curious about your dish. She want to ask you, is there any cultures on other country that influence the ingredients or the cooking technique of this recipe? Or is it maybe a form of modernizations of another dish from Indonesia or any country? Okay, that's the question.
Okay, so to answer your question, I would think that in Asian food, especially Indonesian, Chinese, Indian, Japanese, and such, Asian countries tend to use more herbs and more flavors in their dishes compared to maybe more Western countries like maybe Europe or America. So I would think that this cooking method and the ingredients used in this is just a mixture of all the ingredients that we have found across countries, maybe in our spice trade throughout Asia with India, or maybe other countries like Vietnam or China and such. So we have found that in the traditional recipe in itself, we have these ingredients here in Indonesia, but maybe there's a bit of a modernization in the ingredients used, and we have adapted to this taste. So we use a mixture of different kind of herbs. And for ungkep in itself, I would say that ungkep, the method of cooking this, which is simmering the chicken inside the broth so that it absorbs the flavors, I would think it's a pretty universal kind of method, because I think everybody is familiar with simmering proteins. Maybe even in Western countries such as Italy, where they simmer meatballs in the marinara sauce so that it absorbs that tomato flavor and the sauce. So I would say it is both an original from Indonesia, and it's also a mixture of all the different Asian countries that we have in the world. Because as we see with this kind of chicken and these kind of herbs, we find all these herbs in countries such as Malaysia or India. So I would think it's a pretty universal kind of dish, but I would still think that this is a purely traditional dish in Indonesia. I'm sorry, does that answer your question?
Areta, is it clear now? Or do you still have any thoughts on this dish?
No, it's very clear. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you for the questions.
Thank you very much.
So if you have any more questions, I'm happy to answer now. But if there are no more questions, I can maybe move on to the next steps. So this step in itself the simmering of the chicken. It's gonna take about um, 30 minutes to 1 hour just to let all of that liquid evaporate. This step is done until about 20 to 30% of the liquid is left, and it's a bit more dry. But this process will take a lot of time. So I've made this same dish beforehand so that I can show to you what the finished product looks like. So for now, we're just gonna let this simmer. And here I have the same dish which I made earlier. So if you can see, the chicken is supposed to look like this after we're done cooking this. So as you can see, it's very, very yellow from the turmeric, and it has all of those grains of the different ingredients that we have, and it's cooked through. It's important to note that this is cooked through. So you can eat it like this, but I prefer to fry it after this. So like I said, only 20 to 30% of the liquid is left, and that 20 to 30% is quite thick and very, very flavorful. And I put this in the fridge earlier, so it's a bit more hard, but it roughly looked like this. See, if you can see, only a little bit is left. But this is very, very flavorful. And what we're going to use this for is we're going to use this for the crunchy bits at the end. We're going to fry this and mix it up with a little bit of flour so that we can make the crunchy bits, or as we call it in Indonesia, kremasan. So now I'm just going to move this to a different stove so it can keep simmering. And now I'm going to prepare a pan full of oil. So the amount of oil you need for this is just to submerge the chicken in itself. So I chose a deep pan for this so that it submerges the chicken well. What we're going to do now is we're going to heat up the oil. We're going to heat it up so that we're going to let it heat up over high heat, because the chicken is cooked through. So what we're going to do here is we're just going to fry the outer layer so that it gives it that crispy texture, and it's going to be delicious. So in the meantime, I'd just like to talk about the different kinds of chicken here in Indonesia. So here in Indonesia, I would say that there are lots and lots and lots of types of fried chicken here. This chicken in particular is the yellow fried chicken. I chose specifically because I think that the yellow chicken itself, it's a very simple yet a very complicated texture and flavored dish. But you know, in Indonesia, there are a lot of different kinds of fried chicken. This kind of fried chicken in itself originates from East Java, but you can find it basically in almost every food stall across the island of Java. So you can find it very easily, and each food stall has its very own different iteration on this dish. So you can taste different kinds of yellow chicken in itself. There are other types of chicken, such as ayam goreng kalasan, which is fried chicken that originates from Kalasan. It's a region in Yogyakarta, the city of Yogyakarta, as well as ayam goreng lengkuas, which is fried chicken that we also simmer in the sauce beforehand. And we use the galangal that we had before, and people just shave it. We shave the galangal and we deep fry it to make those crunchy bits. So it's a different iteration on this because we're going to use the leftover soup base for this. But on the ayam goreng kalasan or ayam goreng lengkuas, we use the galangal, we shave it and deep fry it. Okay, so now I think the oil here is quite hot, and we have to be careful in this step, because with the hot oil and the marinated chicken, there's a lot of water content in this chicken alone. So we have to keep our distance. Be careful in this because it's gonna pop when we put it in. So we're just gonna place a few chickens here. Here I have 4 pieces of chicken. Now, once you put that in, it's not going to take a lot of time for it to cook, for the outer layer of it to fry, because the inside of the chicken is already cooked through. So all we're going to do is we're going to fry the outside of the chicken just until we get that dark brown, bright color, delicious golden brown. And if you want some protection from the oil, you can keep this closed with a lid. But every once in a while, every minute or so, you're gonna have to check on it because of the high heat and the chicken. It's gonna cook quickly. And beforehand, you wanna prepare a plate with a paper towel on it, just to absorb that extra oil on it. Get rid of that greasy texture. And we're gonna let this fry for a bit. And after this, after the chicken, I'm gonna show you how to make the crunchy bits from the soup paste that I showed you earlier. It's a very, very easy process. All you're gonna do is you're gonna take that soup paste and you're gonna add some tapioca flour and some baking soda to it, so that and some basic baking soda and some rice flour, so that you mix it up and it's gonna become a very nice crunchy addition to your dish. I like to tell you a little bit of the story. During my time making this previous batch, I made a lot more, but incidentally, a lot of my family members decided to eat the chicken because it's a very, very popular kind of dish here in Indonesia and in Semarang. So they liked it a lot, and I'm sure that if you try it yourself, you're gonna like it too. So in the meantime, are there any more questions that I could answer while waiting for this chicken?
Yes, so we still have a few questions. The first one is from Nico. Hi, Jovan. I would like to raise questions. To get how to get rid of fishy smells in chicken? Thank you.
Okay, so to get rid of fishy smells, there are a few ways you can do that. For protein in itself, you can use water, ginger, and some spring onions. You just let that marinate inside, and you're gonna wash the chicken through so that it gets rid of that fishy smell. But in this case, I just used some lime, just one lime here, which I squeezed, cut up and squeezed, and then I put a little bit of salt, and I just mixed that up and left it for a bit. So doing that helps a lot with the fishy smell of the chicken, especially on the inside, because I think most of that fishy smell also comes from the blood that's left inside. But doing this, it's gonna help layer that outer layer of it, and it's gonna get rid of that fishy smell. Also, with the boiling process also helps with getting rid of the chicken. So sometimes people like to boil the chicken halfway through before putting it here, but I think that's a unnecessary step, because here we're going to boil it and simmer it for quite a long time. So it's going to make sure that the chicken cooks through, and it's going to have that delicious soft meat, and it's going to fall right out of the bone. So does that answer your question?
Nico, are you there? Nico, no, there. Okay. Well, Jovan, I think we can move to the next one.
Thank you for the question, by the way. Yes?
So the next one.
Okay.
Hi, Mr. Jovan. Do you prefer the instant coconut milk or the one that's fresh from the fruit?
To be completely honest, in my own taste, I don't taste much of a difference, because instant coconut milk in itself is already originated from the original coconut milk. So, but in commercial coconut milk instant ones, in those boxes and in those sachets. I find that most of them come in creams, so you have to add a little bit of water so that it becomes coconut milk. So in this case, as you can see, I have a big jug of coconut milk. I used a instant coconut milk box containing about 200 milliliters of that coconut cream. And I added about 800 milliliters of water to produce this coconut milk. So if you want a more thinner, a nicer, lighter kind of dish, you want to add water to that coconut milk. So that it still gives it that nice savory taste. So I think that the chicken is done here. So as you can see here, it gives it that nice, amazing golden brown color. Take the chicken out. Here. So as you can see here, this is quite the finished product. I'm sorry, can you see the, okay. So as you can see here, the chicken is coated in a golden brown color with little bits of crunchiness. And as you can see here, the oil is colored quite a neon yellow color. So this is due to the turmeric that we put in earlier. It affects the color of the oil as well. So as you can see here, some of the meat and the skin has it's taken itself off from the bone and from the parts because of that simmering process that we did earlier. So it's very, very soft and very, very nice. And it's crispy on the outside, so it's crunchy on the outside. So once we're done with the chicken, next step is to move on to the crunchy bits, or as we call kremesan. So for this part, you want to take the soup base, which we prepared earlier. And in my case, the soup base has been put in the fridge, so it's a bit tough. So I'm just gonna mix it up a little bit. So it's broken down. Okay. So now that it's broken down, what we're gonna do is we're gonna add some tapioca flour. The amount of tapioca flour here, I would say for about 200 milliliters of soup base, I would put about 3 tablespoons of the tapioca flour. Maybe a little bit more. Give that extra crunch. As well as some rice flour. And finally, we're gonna add a little bit of baking soda to this. Just a bit. Okay. Now that once we're done with this, we're gonna add a little bit of water just to make it more liquid. We're gonna mix this up. I would suggest that you put quite a bit of water in here so that it becomes more liquid, but you have to remember that the more water you put in here, the more it's gonna pop at you when you fry it. So I'm just gonna add a little bit more. Okay. Oh, and for this, you can also add a little bit more salt. Just a little bit, because the soup base in itself is very, very flavorful. And you can also add some MSG, but this is strictly optional. Um, this can depend to anybody's own liking. So personally, I like a little bit of MSG in my food. So just gonna put a little bit in there. And we're just gonna mix it up again. And this is basically done for the crunchy bits and the kremasan. So this is the consistency that we're trying to get, if you can see this. So this is the kind of consistency, just quite a thick consistency, but also watery that it doesn't stick to your spoon. So now what we're gonna do is we're gonna heat up the frying pan again. Heat up that oil. And once we heat up this oil to about a high heat, so you want a high heat for this process because, like the chicken, the sauce is going to fry very, very quickly, and it's gonna. You have to pay attention to this step. So just to make sure that it doesn't get burned. So now I'm just gonna scrape off that excess crunch from the chicken that we fried earlier. Now, when the oil is already hot, we're gonna take a spoon and we're just gonna pour it in slowly. And you want to be extra careful because this is gonna pop more than the chicken that we had earlier. So just keep your distance. Use a long spoon if you can. Take a little bit of this, and we're just gonna pour it in. Don't be afraid to put more in because the popping is only gonna last for about 5 to 10 seconds, and after that, it's gonna cool down. It's gonna get rid of all that water content, and the oil is going to calm down. Now at this step, you want to just let it sit for a bit until it calms down, and you don't want to go straight in with the utensils that you have because if you do that too early, it's gonna stick to your utensils. So you're just gonna let it sit for a bit. I prefer to use this type of filter utensil. And once in here, if you can see, once it's calmed down, you want to just push it around a little bit. Make sure those parts just separate. Wait for a little bit and you could just pick it up and it's gonna look like this. You use some clean oil because with clean oil, it's not gonna have that darkened color. It's gonna have a nice golden brown color. Now I'm just gonna put some more in. As you can hear this, it's very, it's popping all over the place. So be careful during this step. You want to pour it slowly and you want to go around the pan as you do it. You don't want to pour it in one spot because if you pour it in one spot, what it's going to do is it's just going to crumple up together in one and it's going to be crispy on the outside, but it's going to be raw on the inside. So you want to go around slowly. Okay. So looking back at the chicken that we made earlier, as you can see, the water here is quite immensely reduced. but this is because I didn't put a lid on it, and I just let all that water evaporate. Just so you can see that the water that's in here, it's simmering, and this chicken is now cooked through. So you're just gonna let it sit on the fire a little bit more. Now I'm gonna take the second batch out of the fry. Again, it's a very soggy texture and it's very bouncy, but don't be alarmed. Also, to add, with this dish in Indonesia in itself, there are a lot of different types of chili paste or chili sauce that you can use. And people in Indonesia, they're very acquainted with different types of soy sauce. Indonesian people can generally then which kinds of sambal is more appropriate for which kind of dish. And sambal is when just from the looks of it. So here, I'm almost done with my last batch of kemasan. Okay. And we're going to turn off the stove because we're done with this part. Okay, so for an example, here are 3 different batches of kemasan that I have made. Can you see? My screen is frozen. Okay, I'm going to show you on this camera. So these are 3 different batches. And on the first batch, it's a bit overcooked and a bit darker on the outside on the color. But as you can see, it's already crispy, if you can hear this. So just wait a bit and it's going to become very, very crispy. So now it's time for the big reveal. We're gonna put the kemasan on top of our chicken. And it's gonna serve as the perfect condiment for this dish. And this is what the finished product is gonna look like. So as you can see, it's the yellow fried chicken with some crunchy bits on the outside. And this dish is best accompanied with some rice and some sambal, as I explained earlier. So here I have 3 different types of sambal. And for sambal, for the chili paste that in Indonesia, there are different pairings of foods for every type of sambal and every type of food. So particularly in this type of yellow chicken, we prefer to use sambal terasi. Now this is sambal terasi. It has a very, very dark color because we cooked all the ingredients through. And to make this sambal, it's a very, very easy process. What you're gonna wanna do is you're gonna wanna cut up some chilies, a lot of chilies, have some shallots, and have some terasi. Terasi, which is something that is made out of epi. It's something that it has a very, very strong aroma, and it's gonna give that character of taste to sambal terasi in itself. So this is the most, in my opinion, it's the best pairing for ayam kuning kuning. Terasi is also called shrimp paste in other countries. So shrimp paste is what is going to get you that nice sambal terasi flavor. And here I have another type of sambal, which is commonly known as the spiciest kind of sambal, which is sambal bawang, or just garlic chili paste. This is made using the spiciest kind of chili, which is sapi rawit, or ghost peppers, and using a lot of garlic. You mince the garlic up, and with the chili, you mash them up together, and you're gonna get this. Different to the sambal terasi, which we use oil, shallots, and chilies, and we fry them up a bit so that it becomes more soft, and we then mash them up. The next kind of sambal that we have here is sambal hijau, which is my favorite kind of chili because it is a reference to the restaurant Lombok Hijau, which translates directly to green chilies. So this is my favorite kind of sambal. It's a bit less spicy than the other kinds of sambal, but it has that distinct green chili flavor and taste to it. So once we're done here, we're just gonna have chicken here, some kremesan, and some sambal. As you can see, this is the finished product. This is the yellow chicken that we have made earlier. This is the kremesan, and this is the chili paste. So for this demonstration, I'm just gonna flaunt on all of you, and I'm just gonna have this delicious yellow fried chicken. So for this, I'm gonna dip it in the sambal terasi, a lot of it, just to give it that extra spice. As you can see, there's a little bit of that skin. I'm gonna have the skin. The skin is the best part of the skin. And coconut milk, we're gonna mix that up, give it a little bit of salt, and then we're gonna blender it up. Then we're gonna have some lemongrass, bay leaves, and lime leaves. We're gonna fry it up a little bit just to give it that, just to let all that aroma fly through. After that, we're gonna put some of that wet soup base in that we've had earlier, and we're gonna cook those ingredients up as well. Once that's cooked through, you put the chicken in the soup base. You mix it up and make sure every part of the chicken is covered in that nice soup base, and then you just put some water in it, just enough to cover the chicken, and you want to put a lid on it with a little bit of a hole on top so that it lets some of the steam out, but not all of it. And you're just gonna leave it. Check on it every 10 to 15 minutes. Use a low to medium heat so that it doesn't get burnt on the bottom. And you're just gonna let that simmer for about 30 minutes to an hour. Check on it once 20 to 30% of the liquid is left. You're gonna take the chicken out, take the dry ingredients out, just throw them in the trash, the lemongrass, the bay leaf, and lime leaf. Since they're not blended through, you're just gonna throw that out. Take the chicken and fry it in a hot oil. So thank you for listening, and thank you for your attention during this demo of the yellow chicken. I'd like to show you this one more time. And I hope that you get the chance to make this on your own in your own homes, because this is an incredible dish, and I wish that everybody in the world could taste it at least one time.
That looks so delicious, Jovan. I wish I was there to try it right away. I think I have to go order some chicken right now.
You have to, definitely.
Okay, Jovan. So here we have a few questions. The first one is from Fania. She wanna ask, how do you think to promote this fried chicken or any Indonesian food internationally?
So to recapitulate your question, you're asking me how to promote Indonesian dishes across the world. Is that your question?
Yes, it is.
Okay, so to answer that question, I feel like here in Indonesia, we have tasted different kinds of cultures and different kinds of cuisine, such as Japanese food, Western food, Italian, French foods, and they come at their own. They have their own different characteristics and different cultures. So I feel like if we here in Indonesia have this kind of delicious food and we're still open to other cultures, I feel like people in other cultures, such as Western countries or other Asian countries, they must be also be open to international foods. And what we have here in Indonesia is a collection of amazing, flavorful, and aromatic dishes that maybe Western people or people across the world have not tasted. So I'm sure that however you promote these kind of products, Indonesian dishes abroad, what you're gonna have to pull through and you're gonna have to shine in the company that you're trying to make is the Indonesian culture that you have in this dish and the brand image of the Indonesian restaurant that you plan to open across the globe. So in Indonesian food, I would say that the product speaks for itself, and you don't need a whole lot of different kinds of marketing tactics. All you have to do is you just have to let the ingredients shine through the taste and the different kinds of dishes and the Indonesian culture, because our country is filled with different types of culture. Just shine that through and let the people from the other countries recognize it, and they will be interested. Try your food.
That is a very insightful answer. Thank you, Jovan. So
You're welcome. Thank you for the question.
for the next one, we have the question from Miss Faiza. She want to ask you about how is the development of the food business in Semarang, especially with the Semarang's traditional food. How is the competitions? And that's all.
Okay, so for all of you Indonesian or Semarang-based viewers out there, I would think that you can recognize yourself with the different Indonesian food, especially fried chicken. Just to name some of them, and I know that only Semarang people would get this. Maybe ayam goreng Pak Supar, or maybe new restaurants, Indonesian restaurants such as Ikan Bakar Cianjur and Arum and Super Penyet and other types of Indonesian traditional foods. The development of this culture is incredibly fast, and I'm starting to see that back in the day, previously, we've only seen food stalls and small restaurants that sell these Indonesian traditional foods. But now I'm starting to see that there are a lot of new restaurants, especially fancy restaurants, such as in Jakarta. I would like to mention Rembulan, which is a fancy and elegant take on Indonesian traditional food. So the development on this type of cuisine is extremely accelerating, and it's very I'm very proud to see that people are starting to recognize that Indonesian food is not just consisting of cheap ingredients and cheap foods such as warteg or those small food stalls, but they can also elevate these cultures and these flavors to bring some more of a elegant and luxurious taste to them. So I would say that the development of this cuisine is very rapid, and I would think that there are also a few Indonesian restaurants across the globe that Indonesian people have opened, but unfortunately, I haven't had the chance to try any of them because I have been taking my time to taste the Indonesian restaurants here in Semarang and other countries. So that's my take on the development of this cuisine.
Well, okay. We still have another questions. The next one is from Chamira. I would like to ask, based on your opinion, what is the best strategy for Indonesia traditional food to adapt in the international market? And do you have any plans to internationalize traditional food, especially in your restaurant?
Okay. So I will think that this question is in relation to the previous answer that I have given. So seeing that um, um, restaurants that have different cuisines, such as French or Japanese or Chinese restaurants, just based on the place in itself here in Indonesia, they like to open their restaurants with a very, very culture strong resemblance to to the restaurants that they have in their country, and that's just because that they want to shine, that they want to tell people that this is a Japanese restaurant, this is a French restaurant, this is an Italian restaurant. So I would say that that is also the appropriate move to make when you're trying to open a traditional Indonesian restaurant across the globe. So what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to let that culture shine through. You're going to have to let people know that this is Indonesian food and Indonesian food tastes good, and you're going to have to let those ingredients and those flavors shine through. And as for Lombok Ijo in itself, for now, Lombok Ijo has a few branches of its restaurant across the island of Java, here in Semarang, as well as Surabaya, Jogja, Kota Madiun, Tegal, Cirebon, and other different cities, as well as Bali. Bali, we also have one branch here in Bali. But as for the other islands, such as Kalimantan or Sulawesi, Sumatra, we have yet to open branches in those islands. So before we attack forward on the international market, we would like to finish and introduce Lombok Ijo to people around Indonesia first, and to different islands in Indonesia.
Okay, Jovan. So the next question is from Jessica Natania. Jessica, do you want to deliver your questions personally?
Okay, Kakaknya, thank you for the opportunity. First of all, hello Kak Jovan.
Hi.
I want to ask, first of all, I see a great potential to sell this kind of chicken in a frozen package form. What I like to ask is, how should we pack this kind of chicken if we want to send it to other cities? How to make sure for it to arrive safely through the expedition? Thank you.
Thank you for the question. And to answer your question, recently, due to the pandemic here of COVID-19, especially in restaurants, not only my restaurant, but most of the restaurants and most of the companies fighting in the food industry here in Indonesia, we have had to make a lot of changes to our business model, as well as we have to make a lot of sacrifices. And one of the things that we did in Lombok Ijo here is we provided a new type of product for the people that want to cook at home, or have homes in other cities. So what we did is we cooked the chicken. We cooked the chicken halfway through, and we did not fry it yet. We also used the same method as here, ungkep, which is simmering the chicken and the ingredients. And we just had one big packet. We filled the halfway cooked chicken in, and we vacuumed that package so that no air is inside, none of the bacteria is left inside the package in itself. And we vacuumed it, and we froze it. We froze it in the fridge, and we send it. We can send this to people in other countries. In other cities. And so far, here in Lombok Ijo, we have only ever tried to send this product to different cities here in Indonesia, such as Jakarta, Jogja, Bandung, and other countries like that. As for the making sure that this arrives quickly, I would say that as long as you freeze your chicken, and when you send it, you put it in a cooler box, recognizing that cooler boxes have a big shape. So I would say that you have to fill the cooler box with some packets of chicken, not only one. And through testing, I have a relative out in Jakarta, which we have sent our chicken to numerous times, using that method with a cooler box and with a packet of vacuum chicken. We have sent it to him, and knowing that Jakarta is about 2 days worth of shipping here in Indonesia, from Semarang to Jakarta. And he keeps the chicken, once he receives it, he keeps the chicken in the freezer. and he can always take it out once in a while, take one chicken out, and fry it directly and put it back in the freezer, and it doesn't go bad. So I would say that this method is quite foolproof, and especially to people in close cities. Unfortunately, we haven't tried to send it to other islands like such as Kalimantan, Sumatra, and Sulawesi and such. But as for the longevity of the product in itself, as long as we put it in the freezer, we can keep this product for quite a long time, and we can enjoy it anytime we crave this kind of chicken. So.
Okay, Jessica, is that clear enough?
Yes, thank you so much, Kak Jovan.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
For the next question from Vicky, Mr. Jovan, is the recipe suitable for beef? For the ayam ungkep?
Sorry?
The ayam ungkep recipe, is it suitable for beef?
For beef, I would
Yeah.
say it's quite suitable for beef. Beef in itself is a protein that has, in my opinion, more flavor and more of an aroma in its meat. So with beef, if you boil beef, you can see that most of that stock, you can see that the stock fills up the water that you boil it in. So I would imagine that if you put beef instead of chicken here, it would taste just as, or it might even taste better. But the traditional way is to use chicken. But if you want to use beef, it's definitely an option, even maybe a great option at that, because of that beef flavor. It's gonna seep into the soup base more. So you can try using beef, or maybe you can try using fish. But I would say that fish is a more delicate protein, and if you simmer it for too long, I'm afraid that it might break inside the broth, and once you pull it out, it's just gonna be a lot of fish bones. So I would recommend using either beef or chicken.
Okay, so we have the last questions here from Salsa. She wants to ask you, can we still make ayam ungkep, but the low calories one, especially for person including me who are on diet but still want to eat delicious food?
I'm sorry, can you please repeat the question?
Okay,
Forgive
Salsa
me,
wants to know, can we still make ayam ungkep, but the low calories one, since there's a lot of person who's on diet but they still want to eat chicken. Yep.
Okay, so I understand your struggle. Me looking at myself, I'm a big guy, and I like to eat a lot of food, a lot of calorific food at that. And unfortunately, here in Indonesia, where the food is extremely delicious and there are different types of flavors here, unfortunately, the food here is quite calorific, especially due to the coconut milk. Coconut milk is a very thick and a very rich liquid, and it contains a lot of calories and fat. So I would say maybe instead of using coconut milk, you can use just cow, or you can also make a different kind of chicken using coconut water. So there are also different types of fried chicken using coconut water, which is lower in calories, and it's also just as delicious. But I should warn you that if you make it using coconut water, it's gonna taste a little bit different. But if you want a similar taste to this, but with less calories, maybe you can use the cow milk, the fresh milk, or maybe even low-fat milk, which contains even less calories. I would say that it tastes maybe slightly less rich, but just as good. So you can try that if you would like to try using this dish.
Well, okay, thank you for the tips, Jovan. But I have one last question. This is a personal question for me, actually. Are you interested or ever considered joining MasterChef in the future? Since I can see that you have the potential to be a MasterChef candidate.
Forgive me for being modest, but I am not the chef that you make me out to be. Just a person that enjoys cooking. I am very interested in the culinary world. I'm very interested in Indonesian food, all types of cuisines, and I like to try cooking once in a while. But unfortunately, I don't have the expertise to be able to join a cooking show or a cooking competition, just like MasterChef, especially at that level. So just to say that I'm just a normal guy who enjoys cooking, enjoys the food industry, and I just like to cook once in a while, try different kinds of recipes and different kinds of dishes. And for me, unfortunately, for now, I'm not. I'm not too keen on trying to join MasterChef, but because I'm afraid that they will make a laughing stock of me. So
Well, I still think that you have the potential to do one, but oh well, okay. It's so sad to tell you, but I have, I have to because we've reached the end of today's sessions. So thank you, Jovan, for the very insightful experience that you share with us, and for also for the demonstration that you taught us today. I wish you could send the chicken for my to my home in Jogja right now. But before we ended the sessions, we're going to have a photo sessions with you and your guest, Jovan. Is that okay?
sure, sure, sure.
Okay. Okay. I might. We can get ready. The operator. I will start the countdown. I will start the countdown. Okay. Wait. Okay. I will start counting. 1, 2, 3. Strike a pose. Okay. The second layer. 1, 2, 3. Strike a pose. Okay. The third layer. 1, 2, 3. Okay, next one. 1, 2, 3. Okay. Okay. Well,
Okay.
that's all. Okay, so this is the end of today's sessions. Thank you so much, Jovan. And after this, all of you may leave the meeting, and we'll see you again tomorrow with another interesting topic to share. So bye bye to all of you.
I would like to say thank you for the people in charge of this event. Thank you for inviting me to show people and to demonstrate to these people how to make this dish. And I hope all of you can try this dish in your own houses and try this dish on your own. So thank you so much for the opportunity. And please stay safe, everybody.
Thank you, Mr. Jovan.
Recording stopped.
Cia sama Rita.
Iya, Mas.
Tolong.
Bagaimana, Mas?
Ya, tolong bantu R. Oke, jadi buat kalian semua, kalau saya bilang R, remove-in semuanya ya. Jadi biar nggak kelamaan.
Oh, oke, Mas. Udah ini, Mas.
Jadi begitu moderatornya udah nutup sesi, langsung aja yang PIC bantuin saya remove-in satu